Let's get started. First of all, we are excited that we're doing this again. It's been a while. I don't remember the last time I did a webinar, but that's been something we've been trying to do for some time. I was close to cancel this one or postpone it just because I got a cold, but decided let's keep it. We really have some good things we want to talk to you guys about. So let's start with maybe a quick round of introductions. Some of you might know Jack, maybe not, but let's just do some intros and then we'll jump into the topic. So Jack, do us the honors.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. My name's Jack Roy. I run the data architecture team at Softcrylic. Um, I have been working in this space for a number of years now, primarily in the CDP, data modeling, orchestration areas of marketing technology. Um, and yeah, we do a lot of fun stuff on my team. We work with a lot of very interesting clients. We work in basically every vertical. So I've got a lot of use case experience, and yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys all about B2B. It's going to be a big focus for this year. So we're
Yeah.
really excited to get into it.
No, I'm excited about that too. And this is going to be a first of a series of webinars we're going to have around B2B. I think, honestly, I don't think B2B has been getting enough love because it might have in the past maybe a bad rep that it might be boring or it's not as exciting. And can we say the word sexy? I think we can. I said it as B2C, but I think that is not true. We've been having a lot of fun in implementing B2B and learning about the B2B, how it works. Neither Jack or I come from that background. So this for the past, I want to say almost 3 years, this has been slowly growing within Softcrylic, and we're
Yeah.
excited to do more of it. So I'm Jerry, for the people who don't know me. I am part of the solution architecture group. I have the opportunity to touch a lot of projects that Jack leads day to day, but I get in and just help in setting up and also just give my 2 cents, piss off Jack a little bit. But other than that, I stay out of trouble and let them do the real work. Sometimes I take credit where I should not be taking credit, but hey, that's how it works. Um, all right, so I want to start with just talking about like what is like when we talk about B2B. I want actually first to have Jack to talk about his perspective. Like what is he when he thinks about B2B, what does that mean? So Jack, tell me what's on your
Yeah.
mind when that comes up.
Yeah, and it's an ever shifting answer, quite frankly, because it's so, everybody's definition of B2B is a little bit different. There's so many different B2B models out there, like business models. But, from a very basic level, we all know B2B is about companies marketing and selling to other companies, right? Um, Now, more granularly, it's a world where relationships really matter. Data is obviously very important, and strategy is exceptionally important because in B2B, generally deals tend to be a lot bigger. The sales cycle is longer, and decisions are usually made by you know, not just one person, but many people across many teams within a big organization. I mean, it could be, tens, 20s. We get a lot of people making decisions throughout the entire sales process, and they're all across different job functions. So you got, IT, marketing, procurement, C-suite, and you really have to influence all of those different types of people in different ways. So B2B, there's a lot of complexity involved in a marketing context.
Yeah, no, I think you described it well. Um, really, my experience or how I got to know about B2B actually started in 2017. Up until then, I was always working on the consumer side. Um, at the time, I just joined Subcrylic, and I went to a conference. I think it was up in Boston. It was a Martech conference, and it was sponsored by Marketo Engage, and that was before Marketo was acquired by Adobe. And then when I went there, everything I saw was like CDP. And at that time, DMPs were still hot, and that was like my passion. I love DMPs though. I felt like they were the coolest thing ever. They're so quick to do things, so has have a lot of impact. Cookies were still hot. Um, but then when I was there, that's how I got introduced to Action IQ, what was it? Treasure Data, Blue Conic, like things that I've never heard of before. By the way, for anyone putting asking questions, if you can just hold on to the end, or if you want to put them in the chat, we can definitely get to these questions when we can, unless there is any specific issue. But we'll cover some time at the end for sure. But then when I was there, it was it, the way that painted the CDP. It was about, instead of working with anonymous data, you're working with real first party data. And I thought that was really cool, because when it comes to the way that we did any consumer related advertising or marketing, using your own customer data was only through email, right? Only your own channel. But the ability to use that on not own channel was a new concept. So it was really interesting. That's how B2B was set up, is that it was first party data, and that first party data was used for to drive B2B engagement. And knowing when you are like exactly what you mentioned, it's not one person making a decision. There might be someone doing the research, and that person then need to put together the idea together to his or her manager, and then from there, then they need to present it to the procurement team. The procurement team needs to go and do their own type of analysis and research. So it's not like the life cycle can be massive, right? So with that, that's how I got to know about it. And I think over time, we started seeing a shift in how companies start creating new B2B tools. Um, the old ones were still around. We were actually been busy migrating people off of them. But like, for example, Alqua, very powerful B2B lead nurturing, lead scoring, lead management to a certain extent, has great integration with Salesforce and other tools, but it is a nightmare to configure things in it. And actually, it changed the way people think about B2B, where they're able to customize it so much, but to the point where that knowledge to know what was done is impossible to, or very tough to reverse engineer or document, if you ever want to try that. But no, I do think that that landscape has been changing. It's no longer B2B is, if a lead comes in, how do we score it and then pass it to a salesperson? The salesperson contacts them. It's more than that. It's when a lead comes in, how do we take that information and put it in a journey where we are able to tap into other people that can be part of that ecosystem, and then and go through it and orchestrate the communication. Maybe we can control the frequency of how often I want to communicate with this person before I move to the next person. If
Right.
there was another signal by another person on that within that company, how does that influence our entire strategy? So I'm really excited on how it's been changing. If you think that B2C is like a 2D, definitely B2B is a 3D or 4D, because it completely can give you more control and more capabilities for you to do with the data. Jack, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think in general, what we've seen in the vendor space is they've started to take their B2B offerings a lot more seriously. They're a lot more featureful. They're a lot more feature complete. And I think fundamentally, like back to my point earlier, they're their solution set is becoming a lot more customizable. So um, basically, again, every B2B model for every company is a little bit different. And that's important to facilitate and handle that level of complexity across different organization types. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let's dive into some meat, right? Like let's figure out like get some details around like what does that look like? So
Mhm.
um I'm gonna rely on you a lot because you've been implementing different B2B CDPs as well as marketing automation. But let's talk about CDP first. Um, how different is what a CDP is for B2C compared to a B2B? And walk me through at a high level, and then let's talk about the main differentiations. And I think at one point we want to talk about some considerations that could be later, so people know how complex it is because it's not as a simple implementation compared to a B2C. But let's hear it.
Yeah, so they're very different. Again, by nature of just the business models being functionally and foundationally different. Um, and I think at the most basic level, going back to sort of a lot of my focus, B2B tools have started to um, create out of the box data models that support or better support the relationships between all these different things that are really important in a B2B organization. So obviously people, decision makers, accounts, all the different versions of accounts at different stages of a funnel. Um, and from a journey perspective, really attributing different conversions to different groups, the ability to orchestrate across groups within an account, within an organization. And just in general, what we're seeing is, the data model is the data models being offered are very mature. The orchestration that's built on top of those models is becoming more easy for not just, technical people like me to use, but marketers to actually implement without the need of somebody like me coming in to help. So it's becoming a lot more user friendly in the B2P space for a lot of these tools. And in the past, it was not at all. It really wasn't. So I think that'll be a huge, differentiator as we go into 2025. Just the it's an overused term, but like the democratization of these types of tools and just the usage of data to build these types of orchestrated campaigns. I think it's going to become a lot easier for a lot of different
Mm.
people within the marketing world. So,
So what it would be different, like in a B2C, we're talking about there is a person, or let's say I'm gonna say a member, right?
yeah,
And you have attributes associated with them. These attributes can be tied to them that are like first name, last name, address, like PII, as well as like profile attributes, what we call. But then
yeah.
there's also events that that person might have, right? Um, so events such as, I went and I bought this and I paid this amount of money. I came to the website at this time of the day, etc. When you talk about B2B, you do have those people, right? But then there's a relationship between that person to what would be, let's say it's an account or a company, right?
Right.
And then so there could be, let's say, Jerry and Jack work at Acrylic. So we are both of us might be individual members, but we have a relationship with Acrylic. So there is a one-to-many relationship here from Acrylic as a company to us as members.
Hmm.
Um, but then you also have people that are, or you have some activities, and attributes that happen on the company level, right? Because there is situations where you might see that, and this is where the information of the individual might not be attainable. So I'll give you an example. I go to, let's say I am, what am I in the process of buying? Let's say I'm in the process of buying a tool for self-acrylic. So I'm researching something on different websites. And then when I go on this website, they might be able to do a reverse IP address or use like a demand base or Sixth Sense or any of these to look me up to be like, where's this IP coming from? And given that we're always on VPN, then they will see that this is coming from self-acrylic or Hexaware. So there is that type of information, and then they have details about the company itself. So it can be revenue, amount of people, locations, blah blah blah, and then attributes. So then you do have that relationship, right? You have on the company level, and then you have on the individual level, and then there's a connection. Um, Question for you: Is it? It's not really possible to tie that event level that happened for the level is like attributed to a Jerry or a Jack because we don't have, I mean, there could be cookies associated and such, but to know for sure that this is the same person is not really doable. So a lot of these attributes might stay on the company level. Like, are we able to connect these two based on some of the implementation you've seen? I know that at least that's a
Yeah.
question I get asked all the time is, hey, I have things happening on the account level. I want to be able to use them to segment on a people level. What do you
Yeah.
think about that?
Yeah. So, and just to like kind of roll all this up, like within B2B, from a data perspective, we've got like essentially two or three levels. We've got, people, individuals, you and me, and we have durable things about us that, identify us as people. We've got attributes, right? Our names, where we live, the sports teams we like, unless you're like me, I'm in Phoenix and I have to choose a better team basically every year that's not in Phoenix.
I'm a
Um,
new sports fan, but we
yeah,
have the Pistons, which we
right.
do have other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, keep going.
So anyways, for most people, that's a durable attribute, right? So
Yeah.
we're people, and but we also do things. We generate events. I buy things. I interact with websites. I do things all day long. And then if I was a part of a B2B organization, I'm also associated usually with an account, either a company or a subset of that company, if depending on again how you organize your accounts in a B2B context. And those accounts generate events like all of the people within an account do things. And the expectation, I think, for a lot of B2Bs from what we've seen is that they should be able to support events at the account level because it's super important, right? To be able to track and attribute what everybody's doing within an account to an account itself. Um, in reality, a lot of CDPs didn't have this capability in the past where they could actually support, event attribution and generation at the account level. It had been solely something that we could attribute at the person level, which, definitely was a limiting factor when going to create, marketing audiences, when going to create new campaigns that you want to utilize this account level data. There were always ways around it, and we've implemented those in the past. Um, you know, Basically normalizing data, just making it flatter in general, so we can
Hmm.
attribute it to the account itself.
Hmm.
Running scheduled jobs queries in order to attribute certain types of data to those accounts, but um, that was always a customization. It was always an expense, right? So our customers were always kind of bummed about it, as they should be. It's something that B2B organizations have always wanted, and haven't gotten until now, where again, back to my point, the data model being offered by a lot of these vendors, Adobe, Salesforce, et cetera, right, is really starting to support this level of attribution and customization. So I think if you are a part of a B2B organization, you're on this call, you should be excited about what's being offered in 2025 for a lot of these, not just CDPs, but orchestration tools, analytics tools. It's becoming a lot more robust for sure.
So one thing that, as you talk about this, one thing that comes to my mind is that I know in the past, before B2B CDPs became a thing, we used the B2C version to service a B2B client. I know we've done that a couple of times. So how critical do you think it is to, like, how would you go about to say, you know, a B2C CDP is going to be fine for me? Maybe because I do have B2B tech stack where I just need to feed it a profile to say, hey, this person is ready to be emailed or ready to get on the journey.
Right.
Um, I don't the all the logic and the intelligence of identifying whether this person is this account and level, is this the right person within the account, can be managed outside. Is it possible? I'm thinking the answer is yes, but I want to get your perspective.
Yes, definitely possible. And I think, again, foundationally, the question that people should be asking if they're going and trying to buy these tools is, what do I actually want to do with them? Like, do I want to create campaigns for accounts, or do I care really only about creating campaigns for individual people? That's really what these tools do, right?
Yeah,
They allow they allow like a not really householding, but something similar to
yeah,
householding where you can essentially group people into, accounts and then market to those accounts in different ways. But
yeah,
if that's not something that you care about as an organization, like say you just want to personalize and communicate with individuals alone, I wouldn't I wouldn't, necessarily go and buy a B2B CDP and work through all that complexity. So it really just depends on what your goals are from a marketing
yeah.
perspective. Um,
Okay, okay. Yeah, I think that's important to point out is that it's not that make the right case for needing the B2B because it is more work. It might require more things internally for you to prepare before bringing that data in. And and like I know that there is, with one of the biggest issues in B2B marketing stacks is duplicates, right? Duplicate leads. I know, for example, someone might submit a form online, but might be in a rush and they might call the call center. So now
mhm.
they exist as two leads within the system. I know that is a very hard thing to maintain, to manage duplicates. Um, but these are things where you do want to think about that before you're bringing into a CDP or adding it to the next stack. So um, this is where if your data, I mean, that's where you might make the decision that because of how the data is, you might not bring leads. You might only bring your known customers and
Right.
then just manage those leads, keep them in the lead nurturing the way they are. But the ones that are members that you know are going to be, you're going to do it for cross sell or upsell or knowing who they are and they are up for a renewal. This is where you can leverage the B2B and that intelligence layer. And I think the one more thing that a B2B, especially in the CDP space, that offers is modeling, like taking your scoring and propensity and likelihood of things to the next level. Some CDPs offer it as an add-on package. Sometimes you are able to get your own models on top of the data that is stitched together within the CDP. I know we do some of that, both of these to for some clients of ours. So that is also something to consider with going in a B2B route.
Yeah. And just one thing to add, um, when you go and buy any of these tools, it's not going to fix the like foundational data, right? So whether you go with B2B, whether you go with B2C, you know, you really do have to consider the cleanliness, the validated status of your data, because quite frankly, none of these tools are going to fix that. So, I mean, we Jerry and I talk about this a lot, like the concept of the pre-CDP or what we call marketing data foundation or MDF, is really this idea of getting data ready for something that a like a CDP could actually use. Because a lot of these CDPs do have fairly stringent rules around how the data is formatted once it comes in. Because what we've seen with clients, years ago when we first started doing this work, is we would, they would be sold a CDP by some vendor. We would come in and help them, and we would find that they were not ready for a CDP. They had not gone through this like sort of pre CDP process. And honestly, the investment was, I wouldn't say wasted, but it was definitely
Oh, it's
probably,
wasted. It's
yeah.
it's
I mean, it's
wasted
more
because
expensive
we
than it should have been for sure. So, uh,
yeah, I mean that's actually a great business model for us because so many times we have to help them re-implement the CDP or help them in managing their pre-CDP environment. But I agree.
yeah,
It's that's the first thing we do whenever we're brought into an opportunity is we ask, "Are you CDP ready?"
right.
And people laugh about that, but most of
Yeah.
the time they're not. Yeah, I agree. All right, so let's given that we're going to Adobe Summit coming up next month. We are both ex-Adobe people, and we love the Adobe stack. We've been spending a lot of time with the products and the implementation team. I would love to for you just to talk a little bit about what Adobe CDP, what are some of the things that have really developed in that product over the past few months. I think there was
Yeah.
big updates that happened, and also AJO B2B is a fairly new improvement of AJO from the existing B2C. You had the opportunity to work with both, and you were on the customer advisory board for one of them or both. I can't remember. But yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about what you've seen and some of these new things that came up that were really very powerful. We can start with the
Yeah.
CDP.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest one, and everybody's going to find this either funny or annoying, or both, is, obviously Gen AI. The focus on generative AI is definitely the world's, or at least the business world's focus right now. Um, and it certainly is for Adobe as well. Uh, and Adobe is positioning this as, I think a lot of companies are around deployment of AI agents, what some companies call agentic AI, into their products. So how effective this is going to be is, I think, still to be seen. I've certainly seen some very compelling use cases for it around, you know, um, like for example, you're going in and you're creating a journey for a B2B campaign, and you don't know where to start. So you have your AI agent help you ideate on how to create this journey in real time. And you interact with it in like a text interface, right? You just literally text in. If anybody's used ChatGPT, and I want to create this type of journey, bang, it's right there, right? Obviously, this puts the onus on you and your organizations to validate heavily. So that's where I'm not totally sure if it's going to be a true value add, or if it's just going to shift the work that marketers are currently doing from campaign creation to validation of AI output. So
Mm.
we're going to find out how much optimization and how much it actually helps people, right? But that is definitely a huge focus. Um, and let's see other things that are definitely going to be
I
coming.
think one thing that was specific to CDP with Adobe was there was initially like a limitation of how many like what you can create when oh yeah, I remember that one because that was fun. Attributable data on the account level was had a limitation of like 30-day look back or something. And that has been lifted. So now you can really look back more. I think that was a big deal
Yeah,
for some of our clients that were struggling with creating audience segments that are account level that had, the life cycle of a B2B is long. So looking back just 30 days is not enough. Do
yeah,
you remember that one?
yeah, exactly. So I think in general, what we're going to see with the Adobe B2B CDP offering is the lifting of a lot of these limiting factors with the product currently around event lookbacks, around event association, around
Mm,
segment complexity in terms of evaluation, right?
yeah.
A lot of these things are being worked on by the product team. Um, it's just a matter of prioritizing everything because, like I've said, multiple times, every B2B organization is different, and trying to productize something for every organization is not really possible. So it's really about like making it as customizable as possible
Mm,
without decreasing usability. Um,
yeah.
I think Adobe's
The
getting
one
better.
thing,
Yeah.
yeah, the one thing I haven't seen yet in the B2B space, and I think just because our clients have not really requested that or needed that, but whether the whole federated or composable aspect can work well for a B2B CDP. I don't
Yeah.
think there'll be a problem, but that would be also interesting to see a shift where because a lot of these folks are they want to maintain their own data. They don't want to move it around and be
Yeah.
tied to a single CDP.
Oh, and,
So
and Adobe is expensive. I mean, from a
yeah,
storage perspective, it's not a cheap tool. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I totally agree.
yeah,
Federated data in a B2B context will be super powerful as well.
yeah.
Um, so
Okay, how about AJO, right? Like, and that was an interesting move because when we have set up the Adobe stack, or whenever we set it up, if it's a B2B client, 9 out of 10 times, Marketo is the lead capture and
mhm.
lead nurture. Salesforce is the contact conversion, and then the CDP will sit in between them. We'll get data from both of them. We'll build the data model in there, and then we will feed data back to Marketo for activation. And then AJO came and said, wait, we're going to do a B2B model. And I understand why, but I would love to hear your perspective on how that works and what has that like opened, what doors it opened for B2B journey orchestration and lead nurturing and
Right.
such.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think anybody who is been involved in the Adobe marketing world, especially from a B2B context, has probably been asking the same question, like, why is Adobe offering two products that seemingly do the exact same thing? Um, I I think the answer is because they don't do the exact same thing. They're complements to each other. And I mean, also, quite frankly, Marketo was an acquisition, right? And what we've seen with a lot of Adobe products is from the Experience Cloud perspective, they're starting to be heavily integrated with AEP. And the XDM model, right? With the idea being that if all of these applications share the same sort of base layer of data, they are much more integrated. We can orchestrate and analyze and activate using the same data, and it's not some fractured interface, right? Um, that being said, Marketo still extremely powerful, still being heavily supported by Adobe. I was just at a conference last week, and I can't talk about all the specifics of what they were sharing, but Adobe is, heavily invested in the Marketo product, and definitely is going to be supporting and enhancing it for the foreseeable future. But if your interest is in consolidation of all of your customer and account data, shifting to AEP, and then using AJO B2B as it kind of comes out of its infancy stage, um, I think will give you a lot of value add um, from a centralization of data perspective. Um, so
Yeah, I want to see. I know we have a few projects in queue that have that type of arrangement, Marketo, AGO B2B, CDP B2B. I want to see like how these pan out, and then hopefully we'll do another maybe webinar. We'll bring that client in and talk about how that works because I think it's a. I mean, I don't even have the right answer into what is the right arrangement here because there's plus and minuses for each. Marketo is, when it comes to lead capture and scoring and nurturing, I mean, it's very powerful. AJO also is very powerful because it sits on a data model that exists within the CDP. But then, it might not have the lead management that Marketo has. So maybe that now shift to the CDP. I don't know. I think this is something we want to keep an eye on and see how well that evolves.
mhm.
Um, all right, so I think we're this is time is flying. We're 40 minutes in. The last topic I want to discuss with you is, let's say we have people on the call here who their plans this year to stand up a CDP in a B2B organization. What are the things? I'm not going to talk about the selection of CDPs. We'll leave that to another time. But what are the things they should watch out for in general? I know we're going to have more sessions that go into more detail, but generally, to prepare for a CDP implementation in a B2B space, what are some of your advice that you can give them, given that you've done
Yeah.
this a few times?
Yeah, and let me preface this with saying that like we're all still learning, obviously, and every implementation.
Always learning.
Different. But what we've seen so far is general, um, because quite frankly, I think the products are newer and the implementation teams are less experienced in this space. And the organizations buying these tools, you guys, are also typically less experienced in these tools. So a lot of newness, right? The implementation timing is longer. Um, it's definitely longer. So it's something to plan for in your organization. When you're buying these tools, when you're advocating and evangelizing within your org, saying like, this is a tool that's going to help us do what we need to do from a marketing perspective. Just be clear. I would recommend around timing.
Is it
That
fair to say, like, plan for like a 6 months implementation?
Yeah, I mean, I think could be less, probably no more than 6 months. That's the max I would say.
Yeah.
Versus, I mean, what we've done for B2C, where we can get it done in like 3 or 4 months. So you gotta plan in some buffer from an implementation perspective. Um,
And mainly for that, I want to double click on that a little bit. I think the reason is I think the use cases might be there. So it's not the use cases, but the design and the validation is takes a lot more time
yeah,
because design is like I mean, always this is where this is where we struggle always with design. We plan for it's our heaviest and most complex and time consuming, but we always end up spending more time in design. But validation, I mean, it's so important when you're doing a B2B model. I mean, you're talking about segmentation. Again, it's not one dimensional, it's multi-dimensional.
Mm.
There needs to be accounted for all the test plans, all the scenarios, and just ensure that you are checking these all off and spending time. If I am on the business side, I'm not gonna say yes unless these things match my expectation. And if I am on the technical side, I'm not gonna say yes unless I ensure that this is a good replica of the data we have, or if we have some gaps, I have a plan on how to address them. So very
100%.
underestimated important factor is timing. And I
Yeah.
know everyone implementing is like they're trying to fit it in before a big holiday or a big initiative, but plan accordingly. Yeah.
Yep.
What else? What else do you recommend keeping an eye on in an implementation?
Yeah, I mean, after you've spent a lot of time in this space, like years, you start to become more critical of what vendors offer, I think, and just um, I what I would recommend for a lot of people is, many vendors claim that they are B2B focused and they've got, B2B readiness top of mind, right? But really scrutinize what B2B means to the vendors themselves because
Hmm.
it's important that you get a tool or tool set that works for your business, um, not for whatever the vendor's definition of B2B is, right?
Yeah.
So it's super important, in my opinion, that is that question is answered by the purchasing organization upfront. Um, so again, and that's something that we can absolutely help with because we've seen quite a few of these implementations now, and I think we know what to look out for. But again, very important thing to get answered during your sort of sales discovery process, I would say.
Yeah. This is a general rule that I tell every prospect or existing client is before you sign that line, just ensure that this is actually going to work for you across everything:
Yeah.
price, time, capability, use cases, support, renewal. Like there is so many things that are between the lines that are critical. And I think B2B adds another layer because when it comes to maintaining that, you're not only or the maintenance is not only based on profiles, but based on accounts. Segments are a lot more complex. So there is things you want to evaluate early on just to know, one, are you as an organization ready? Two, is your data ready? Three, is that platform the right fit? There's never going to be a platform that's going to check off everything on your list, but what would be the critical things? I know some clients who went with certain B2Bs is because they wanted to tap into an identity graph that helped them in matching more leads within the CDP. And I think that makes sense. There's a lot of clients that want to do that, but also don't don't be don't be blinded by that, where they might do that, but everything else is terrible. Their connections are terrible. Their match rates are terrible. The way that they export the data is not going to work for you. Like, do the homework, ensure that this checks off everything that you need, because not only the price, but 6 months of implementation, you have one shot that year to get this right. Because 6 months of implementing, then you need at least 2 to 3 months to get more adoption and shifting from existing journeys and use cases to the new one. Before you know it, it's a year investment, and that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Any I think we're pretty much at the end of this. I want to say that I know this has probably been a very general topic, and we wanted to keep it kind of general because this is an introductory. Not everyone is in the B2B space. So this hopefully levels the ground, and we are planning another webinar, hopefully before Summit. So sometime maybe in a month or so. And then definitely we'll have more after Adobe Summit. Um, but we'll get into some more detail. We'll bring some more of the architects that Jack works with, and hopefully, actually, we have a few clients that might be interested in chatting about their experience. So this way, you get their perspective, and then we might bring some of the vendors as well into these conversations. Um, but Jack, thank you so much, man, for sharing all your expertise. This has been fun. Thank you for everyone who attended. And this will be posted on our website, on YouTube, and we'll have like a summary of it. And Jack and I are always here. If you guys have any questions, probably the best way is to hit us up on LinkedIn. Um, and then, yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys all on the next webinar. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.